Hello, everyone, and welcome to Team Ningen Gaming, where we unite gamers and small developers so we can do big things. Today, we have with us the creators of TrickShot. It's a game where, well, let's just say I just realized that sound was still on. But it's a game that has skateboarding and all that stuff, and you can do it with while shooting other people. Whoever gets the most points in the end ends up being the winner. Today we have with us the creator Lee from he is the developer, the lead developer on the team, correct?
I'm the game director and producer.
Game director and producer.
Eric Apple is also on the team. He's the lead designer and the programmer. So we're a small team. We've been use some freelancers here and there for some sound and voiceover and modeling. But our core team is a two-person team, and then we also have Alexander Perez as our community manager. So we're keeping it lean.
Nice. That's the way to go, for sure. Especially a game being produced in the U.S. costs are much more pricey here in the U.S. for sure than some other countries. So yeah, definitely, that's really cool. So give us a feel for yourself, Lee. Tell us about your life. Where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I lived there till I was 10. And it was a slight change from going to an island and having easy access to the beaches, and a cold day was like 77. People put on their jackets, and then I moved over to the States, and my dad was in the hotel industry, so we did a lot of moving. So
cool.
So I lived in Florida, I lived in New Jersey, I lived in Pennsylvania, I moved back to Puerto Rico, moved back to Florida, and then now I'm in Fort Worth, Texas. So it's a lot of going up and down the East Coast, basically.
Right. So you've been all over the place. And you've got a little bit of a rebellious spirit. You enjoy mountain biking. You enjoy the idea of skateboarding. At least you can't do it as well as you used to. Apparently, yes.
Yeah, I got the June 21st International Go Skateboarding Day. Definitely got the better of me. I tried to take some dusted off the old longboard and took it around the neighborhood. I was good for the first 15 minutes, and then did a misstep and kind of fell and hurt my wrist a little bit. So it reminded me that maybe I should stick to a bicycle. So
for sure. That's interesting. So you do enjoy mountain biking a fair bit, though, yeah? Or is it?
I mean, just as far as kind of like childhood, toys that you're out there that make you mobile, right? Everyone wants to kind of get out. And, it's that thirst for freedom, and some people it's roller skates, some people it's bicycles, some people it's just jogging. And skateboards or scooters, there's all these vehicles that we kind of, tend to kid kids. But the bicycle is definitely the one for me, So yeah, it didn't hurt that I was a paper boy at one point. So and the bicycle is the vehicle of choice. So back when you could be a paper boy, now it's kind of a lost art. There's even a video game about it at the time, and I really connected to that game, especially the old arcade cabinet actually had there was a version that had a bike handle when you played the arcade game. Yeah. Oh yeah. Back in the day, they spared no expense. It's kind of funny.
That's pretty cool. So you actually delivered newspapers when you were younger. That's pretty cool. How was that? You just chucking them out of your basket? Did you have a little basket like a?
Yeah, I kind of made a route in order to maximize, the hills in the neighborhood. So there was this one kind of really big hill, and I did that one first, and kind of would use the momentum going down and then going to the next street and going to the next street, and in order to minimize the amount of pedaling. So, but yeah, the paper company would give you, hey, a list. Here's all the addresses. Here's the paper they get. Here's the customers. And then once a month, I would have to go and collect their payment, and they would pay for the month or the week or the year. I had one customer that paid for the full year, and it's kind of crazy because they entrusted little kids to bring all this cash. I technically could have run away and spent it all on candy and baseball cards or something like that, but any business. It's an interesting business model that back then they were okay with child labor. Kids, they can deliver the paper. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a big
company does that now.
Not many. And then plus there are too many laws Yeah, and too many things to work around. Yeah, so I just have a picture of you like on your bicycle, like when you're younger, and then you like throwing newspapers and hitting like Mr. Wilson in the face or something, while he's drinking his coffee.
Yeah,
like Dennis the Menace.
I had a basket in the front and one in the back. Yeah, in order to just carry the full route.
Yeah. Now, so many years later, and now you're making a game about boarding and shooting other boarders and for points.
Yeah. Why not? That's the fun thing about video games. You can do a fantasy that's not that you couldn't normally do in real life. Weapons would have recoil. You'd probably fall and get hurt.
Right. Well, you would.
Yeah. In our game, you can. You can do it. You can look. Something about the movement of the old extreme shooter games was just always really fun. From SSX, to Tony Hawk. It kind of, it made you feel like you could fly in a lot of those games, and we really liked that movement. And it was kind of a weird, long process, but it kind of was suggested to us that, hey, this kind of feels like, we were working actually originally on a different game. We were making a space dodgeball game, which makes you feel a lot better because there's that Knockout City that came out recently, and oh man, they would have just crushed us.
Yeah. I've seen a few.
Yeah, we started adding a lot of different movement features, and sliding and grinding, and we kind of took it around to our local IGDA meetup, International Game Developer Association, and they had like a show and tell where people could bring in their games to kind of get feedback from other local indies and local game developers that worked in the industry. Yeah. And someone made the offhand comment, "Oh man, if you put a skateboard on this, it kind of feels like Tony Hawk with guns." And of course, we wrote that down like, maybe
Tony Hawk with
we should look into that.
That's a good idea. Huh, thanks. Yeah. We're not paying you for it. No.
I mean, he could have said, I have a great idea, but I don't have to charge you for it.
But he didn't. Yeah, he was kind. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I like fluid games. That's the one thing I actually liked about the Tony Hawk games when I was younger, right? Like and I only played the demos, right? Whenever the demos would come out, you remember the discs that would come out for PlayStation, and like you'd have several different games on them. And I played the Tony Hawk one for hours. Like I loved doing all of that gameplay mechanics were always so much fun.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, the certain magazines would give you a disc. There was a regular magazine version and the one that had the CD with 101 demos. And that was really fun.
Yeah, that's crazy. So tell us, we got off on video games already. Who was the most inspirational figure in your life so far, Lee?
If I had to say, it was kind of my grandparents on my father's side. They were very humble. The Prussia era upbringing, and they're very grounded. Very very positive. Even though they kind of grew up through a time period that it was a lot of scarcity and a lot of tough times. For a lot of people. Yeah. But it was just from the joy of visiting them, going into their house, and they kind of let me do whatever wacky thing I wanted to do as far as I want to I liked a lot of building toys. Yeah. And they kind of they were very encouraging on stuff like that. So yeah. I remember one time I said it'd be cool if we had some chickens and some ducks. And as an offhand comment, right? Kids watch different movies and have animals and stuff like that. Yeah. And then a few weeks later, I came back and they bought 2 chickens and 2 ducks. They had a big yard, so it helped, and they didn't have an HOA where they lived at. So right. So that was kind of the crazy fun thing we did that summer. They were and luckily enough, they were once I had kids, they became great grandparents, right? And that's a very unique badge of honor, and they had a very special relationship with my kids, and that was a lot of fun. They were very special to me.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, let me tell you, that's interesting too, because you're the most inspirational figures in your life, the most people that you feel like you connect to so greatly, and they're from an older era, and yet at the same time you have this little bit of rebellious spirit in you at the same time. So you've got some grounding in more, what is it? Those old traditional values, and yet at the same time you've got that rebellious side. That's a neat little combo going for you right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Oh, that's great. What was the first video game you fell in love with? We're blazing through these today, folks. He's got a thing to get to on Discord later, so sorry we're not putting as much time into it, but we're trying to be respectful of his time. So
if you want me to elaborate on any of the answers, I can definitely do that. Don't worry about it. I can.
Right.
Talking is not
okay.
Well, but yeah, we do have a little bit of a time limit. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, no worries. Let's see. Well, tell us about what are some of the fun things you did with those ducks and chickens? You guys, did you take care of them? Did you put them in and build a pen for them?
Yeah, and that was kind of part of the experience. They kind of turned everything into a lesson. So yeah, building a pen and bathing them, and feeding them.
Okay.
My grandfather liked to build a lot of stuff, so he built me like one of those kind of like a little box cart, which kids would take up to the biggest hill in their neighborhood and slide down. It had no power to it, so you kind of needed momentum. The handbrake was just a 2x4 handle that you pulled down into the ground, or you would you could choose to mess up your brand new sneakers and use those as brakes, and that definitely didn't make the parents happy.
Right.
But yeah, just very handy folks, kind of because they grew up from that era where you kind of just had to make kind of make your own toys back in the day. I mean, not quite a stick and a hoop, not 1800s toys necessarily, but yeah, it's just a simpler time, and I think that's kind of what's fun about skateboarding. It's not electrical, doesn't have Wi-Fi, doesn't have lasers.
Right.
It's a flat surface and a few wheels. And it's but man, can you do so many things with it?
Yeah, absolutely. And look at you right now. You're making your own toys. And you're sharing them with others.
That's the fun part of video games. Yeah, they are digital toys, and it is fun to see how people use your creation, and they use it in different ways that you never thought of, and that's that kind of back and forth inspiration wise. That's really fun.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. So we'll get back to that question. What was the first video game you fell in love with?
Ooh, Mega Man 2. Man, I rented that sucker an entire summer. I mean, think about it. Back then, it was I had no cheat codes, no hints, no save state. You had X number of lives, and then you had to start over.
Right.
Or worst case, I had to return it back to the rental store because we only rented it for 2 days. So I would just try to play as much as I can and get as far as I could, and each subsequent rental got a little further and further, and it was the first game I fully beat, beginning to end.
Right.
I'm the oldest of 2 brothers, so luckily I didn't have an older brother bossing me and telling me, oh, you're doing it wrong. That was my role to my younger brother. So it was a real badge of honor when I beat that game and saw the ending, cinematic. I was like,
yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. That's a good option. I hadn't even thought about that. I don't think we've had another person mention Mega Man 2 on the show yet, so it's a good. I've played a few of them, but I didn't realize Mega Man 2 specifically did not have a save feature at all. Like, you couldn't go into the save feature section and it'll give you a code. I know that was like maybe that's a later feature they ended up coming out with.
I don't remember it on that one.
Yeah.
It was not commonplace. Like Zelda, it was very high tech. The fact that it had the battery in it, and you could actually have 3 save slots. It wasn't much. If you had 3 siblings, then somebody's game was gonna get deleted.
Oh yeah.
So
3 siblings, 3 save slots. Somebody's gonna delete yours on accident for sure.
Plus, I think the thing back then is they wanted to make the games really hard to last because they were worried about that rental market. They didn't want people to rent the game on Friday, beat it by Saturday, and then they wouldn't buy it. They kind of had to milk the kids' times out of it to make them get it a few times, or only get halfway beating it and convince their parents or grandparents, hey, just buy me the game. I want to finish this game.
Blockbuster eras.
Oh yeah.
Good days. The good old days. So, all right. Well, what about game development drew you in?
I kind of fell into it sideways. In 2004, I opened up a LAN center in Gainesville, Florida, just across the street from the University of Florida, where the Florida Gators play. And our timing was odd in the sense that we opened at the exact same time another LAN center opened there, and a few months later, the university started wiring all the dorm rooms to have internet. So this was the age of Xbox One, and Halo had local play. So you didn't have to go to bring your Xbox to someone's house or go to a LAN center bit by bit. Like if you were in one dorm room, you could connect and see someone else over the network and play. So we were kind of a little bit ahead of our time in that sense. And but we were doing esports because we were. I used to work at Toys R Us. I was a manager at Toys R Us, and I saw that the video game section was just always the most popular section. I'm like, there's something here, and I read some articles about how Korea and StarCraft 2, StarCraft 1 was super popular, and tournaments for that. And I kind of wanted to open up a center. So we had 32 computers, 4 TV stations for consoles, and people came in paid by the hour to play. So eventually I closed it. It didn't quite pan out. But one of my employees, she got a job as an animator at a local indie studio. And they're like, hey, we really need some help. The place is kind of chaotic, and no one's running, the testing side well. So she kind of got me an interview, and I got that job. I was an associate producer / lead QA, which is a really good way to start. Trying to you learn a lot about games, but we're trying to break them on purpose.
Right.
And that's kind of what got me into gaming, professionally. But it was never something I consciously thought of. I would look at the games at the store and not, realize, hey, there's a lot of people that make this. There's someone has to write the music and write the story and design the characters. This is kind of the interesting part of it. There's a big team and a lot of different roles that go into that.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So you actually went through that whole you happen to know someone that's just like, hey, we needed some help on this, and you end up starting off on QA, which is now that's what I do right now, QA work. That's kind of cool.
No, there's been a lot of pretty big people that started that. David Jaffe, who did the Twisted Metal and God of War series, he started in QA at Sony. Yeah. So it's kind of like the hazing process of the industry in a way.
For sure, yeah, definitely. Especially, I mean, it is my first tech job, so yeah, it makes sense. No, what was it I was gonna say? You had, gosh, I hate it when things escape me. It's the worst thing when you're interviewing live.
No, you're good.
But yeah, I'd say you were one of the OG, what is it, LAN stores here in the U.S. or.
Yeah, we did tournaments for we were a licensed Valve Steam Center. We actually tested Steam before it was public for consumers. They knew that there were a lot of LAN centers, but they wanted to manage how many copies of the game were available, right?
Right.
So because your game center could have 10 computers or it could have 50 computers. There were some really big ones out in California at the time. And part of the reason they created Steam was not only to distribute their own game, but to distribute other companies' games. So we had a site license, and that allowed us to have every Valve-based game. So original Counter-Strike, 1.6, Half-Life, Day of Defeat, all that stuff. It's pretty interesting. We did some tournaments for Blizzard for Warcraft 3. Counter-Strike, CPL, Counter-Strike Professional League, and they were based out of Dallas at the time. But we were the Southeast qualifier for a lot of these kind of U.S. big tournaments. So they would tell you, hey, if you want to, we did Smash Brothers, a lot of Smash Brothers tournaments for the GameCube. So we were kind of like the close spot. If you were between Georgia and Miami, we were kind of centrally, Atlanta and Miami, I mean. We're kind of in that center spot there near Orlando, and people would show up, and we had tournaments on Saturdays and Sundays, and you either win locally or you'd be granted access to the next round for a regional qualifier. So that was a lot of fun.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, like just LAN cafes. I know that they were such a niche thing for a while here in the U.S., especially like when I was growing up through high school and all that. I remember, but there were some hardcore gamers that were in my class when I was growing up. They would talk about it all the time, talking about playing CS:GO there at like a LAN cafe and all that. And I'm just like, what? You can go somewhere and you just what? Like that's kind of a neat idea. And then now everything's online, which is kind of completely online almost. But that's, I mean, obviously for like professional tournaments, they still do pretty much LAN, I believe. I think most of it's still LAN.
Or the closest thing you would do is like, PAX has a big, bring BYOC, bring your own computer, area, or things like QuakeCon. Like, so there's some big events that have that aspect to it. But as far as, going down the street and instead of going to the arcade, going to the LAN center, that's kind of, technology's kind of caught up with, making that worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting. So let's see. How did the idea of the game come about?
So, so we started making a futuristic space dodgeball game, and for against everyone's opinion, I thought it'd be a good idea to call it Balls Out, because it'd be a name that would definitely get people's attention, and it's a little cheeky and risque, even though it technically comes from steam engines. Back in the day, steam engines didn't have a throttle, like you didn't know how fast it was going, and it would have two steel balls attached to the crankshaft, and when the balls went all the way out, that meant you were at full throttle. But everyone thinks it's pervy, of course, in today's society.
Right. Words change. That's funny.
But we started adding a lot of movement. We wanted, you could control the ball like Thor's hammer. You could throw it and kind of recall it back, and waves of aliens would come at you, and you would just kind of take them out. And then we started adding some sliding, and then we started adding some grinding, and some faster movement with jump pads. And I'm a big fan of Quake 3 Arena and Unreal Tournament, those kind of faster-based shooters. And movement and air movement was a big deal. And then we took it to some here in Dallas. There's a great IGDA group, International Game Developers Association, and they have some meetup events where you could bring your game and show it to other fellow indies and other people who work in the industry, like people from id and Bethesda and Gearbox kind of come down since they're based in Dallas, just outside of Dallas. So you never know who could show up to those events. It's kind of cool that way. And someone made the offhand comment, man, this if you just put a skateboard in these characters, this movement feels like it'd be like Tony Hawk with guns. And we weren't getting a lot of love with the dodgeball mechanic, to be frank. It seemed like we were the only ones that were into it. Everyone was like, what are you going for with this ball? I'm like, well, Rocket League has a ball in it. Everyone likes that, but they don't play it because of the ball. They play because of the cars. But luckily we figured that out fast enough, and we pivoted. Which sometimes is hard in game development. We scrapped a lot of work and time. And decided, okay, if we were going to make an extreme sports shooter, what would that be? What would it take? And then we kind of started going down this different path, and adding skateboards and adding hover skates. I love the game Jet Set Radio. Anyone that had an original Xbox or Dreamcast got to play that. Playing skates, that has a very rebellious story plot in there. You're trying to do graffiti before the cops catch you. Tony Hawk had the mall cop trying to get you. So I don't know, something about that, something about getting away with stuff and moving fast was right up our alley.
Yeah, that sounds. Yep. Well, that would do it. Have a PvP, skateboarding game. You just get away with something and move fast.
Exactly.
That sounds right. That's pretty cool. That's a really great. Yeah, and the whole idea of scrapping something and moving on from what you learned. That's anything in life. Whenever you're building anything, it's like, ooh, that didn't work. Okay, well, how can we, what's the good parts of this, and how can we, salvage some of that? And you always do that, right? Yeah. Whether it be coming up with ideas of, oh, well, I think this is my preconceptions about this, but it doesn't quite pan out. What is the reality, right? What is closer to the truth, even if it's something how you view life, whether it's a building that you're making out of, Lincoln logs, or if it's a video game, So I agree. It's kind of cool that you can like bring it someplace like that, and then people, you can see their interactions of people and what they actually think, and if they aren't actually taking something well, you can actually just be like, oh, hey, this wasn't a good idea. What can we do instead? Oh, I like that one. That's exactly what happened with you and your small
Yeah.
team. So it's pretty cool. It's a good
No,
thing.
and that's the part of the scary part in some senses that some people don't want to show their game. It's kind of like not showing your portfolio, your art book, or don't not letting people listen to the music you make. You
Yeah.
kind of need some feedback, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to have a bit of a tough skin, and hopefully people aren't just being mean spirited.
Yeah.
But sometimes feedback is necessary, and sometimes it sets you in a different direction.
Absolutely.
And for us, we think it worked out well. We still learned a lot of stuff along the way from the old game, and some parts, some mechanics,
Mm-hmm.
still stayed in there, but but not much by now, by this point in time now, that has all changed, but it definitely got us going, and we learned a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So is it going to be an Easter egg in there?
There might be. There might be.
Might
That's
be.
definitely the joke. There might be an area you unlock, and there's an arcade, and there's one arcade cabinet in there happens to have the old tech demo for Balls Out.
Yeah, nice, nice, right on.
Yeah.
Let's see. So what are the most difficult things you've had to overcome in making the game? I mean, it's not out
Time.
yet, but I mean, in making
Uh,
this game so far.
no, yeah, and making anything, and this is pretty universal in some ways. Time and funding. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And we're self-funded. To anyone that has a day job and then at home kind of does game development as a hobby, it can happen. It can work. That's how we've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I've worked overtime during my day job, and instead of buying Bitcoin or going a lot to Taco Bell, that money gets funded into buying art assets on marketplaces,
Mm-hmm.
or hiring a local voice actor to do some VO.
Mm-hmm.
And bit by bit, we've kind of put this puzzle together, and yeah, that's kind of what you have to do when you're small and scrappy. Not everyone's gonna, you're gonna tell them on a 5-minute meeting your great vision of the game, and unless you have something to show, they're not gonna get it and they're not gonna
Yeah,
see it.
for sure.
So you kind of have to build it at least to a certain stage that
Mm-hmm.
kind of helps convey that message. And that's what we've done, and we've been getting some really good responses. And we're in talks with different companies that are finally seeing the vision that we had a year ago. It's come a long
Yeah.
way since then. And but no, I recommend anyone who thinks that they can't do it by themselves, or that I can't just do this on the side while I have my other job. You can absolutely do
Mm-hmm.
it. You can turn your hobby into a business, and you don't have to sell your game if you don't want to. I mean, if you want to just put it out there and just see what people's reactions are, and put something
Mm-hmm.
out for free, something small, absolutely.
Yeah.
See put it out to the world and see how it reacts.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I like how you said small and scrappy. Scrappy is that part that's real important. You got to be scrappy.
Yeah, like yeah, the Rebel Alliance. They don't have the nicest ships. They don't have a Death Star. Their uniforms are kind of messed up. They're the scrappy, low budget, but they have a lot of heart. They have a
Mhm.
clear vision, and that's kind of how you have to be as an indie. It kind of fits that mold.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Did you have a build that you wanted to show? I didn't actually ask you that beforehand.
We don't have a build that we're ready to show. We do have some updated trailers on our YouTube channel, and
Hmm.
we can definitely give you a link to post however you
Yeah,
want afterwards.
sure.
But we hope to be doing a demo pretty soon. Pretty soon, and we'd be going through Steam. If you go on to Steam and add us to your wish list,
Hmm.
we'll be communicating that way. And if you go to playtrickshot.com and you scroll to the bottom, you can put in your email and sign up to be an alpha tester.
Okay.
So we will be picking people for that here pretty soon. And
Cool.
yeah, you can try it yourself at your home and tell us what you think. Tell us whether it's good or bad and different. And we're looking for some great feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, cool. We can keep that in mind then. I'll make sure that those links get in there and all that. So make sure after the show to get those to me. Anything we wanted to toughest programming, solving. You know, I'm almost ready to scrap some of these questions that we have for game time.
Let's go around, yeah.
Yeah. So, what was the toughest programming problems you've had to deal with so far?
Kind of managing the time during rapid prototyping and planning ahead. We kind of often get really inspired and come up with a new idea that we want to test, and we kind of just drop everything and work on that. You know, because that's like the new shiny object.
Right.
And that idea, you know, it can be sometimes without efficiency or good structure in mind. And the problem is that when you scrap these ideas, but then when you decide that we like the concept and you want to keep it, so there's a lot of rapid prototyping. You know, you don't have to make it look pretty. It can be gray box. It can be with stand-in art assets. And then you can make it fun first. The baby can be ugly, and then you can kind of dress it up later.
Yeah.
That's definitely that was a little tough to get over at first, because
Yeah.
you're working on something and you look at other people's games online, like, oh, that looks so much better, or they have particle effects and sound effects, and we don't, and that kind of gets you sidetracked sometimes. And until you get the fun nailed down, don't make it look sexy.
For sure. Like, I mean, like, there's some games that, like, the art is the biggest appeal of it, right? But if you're making a game like the one that you are, right, like, the biggest, most important part is that it feels fun to play. As in your category, especially something that's going to be, multiplayer, something that's going to be a skateboarding game, like, all of them are just mechanics based, and how fun is it to do the things that you're doing? Like, what is the goal? Those kinds of things. All of those go into gameplay, and that comes first. That's primary. And yeah, it can be, I imagine it's kind of disconcerting or like worrying whenever you put out your prototypes and trying to test it out, and you're like, man, this is kind of not as what I envisioned. There's got to be some balance.
Things that, like controls, like if you on the controller, everything. Okay, the A button or the X button is usually for jump, and that's pretty standard. But what are you choosing to put on the triggers? What are you choosing to put on the D-pad? Are you going to use the click on the analog sticks? Are you going to use the side button on the mouse? Maybe not everyone has a side button. So maybe you have to have another button on the keyboard. How easily is that accessible? So, so there's a lot of little things that, kind of go into it that you sometimes don't think at first.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And then this is almost the same exact question, but like most difficult thing graphic designing wise, because like your choices in like the artwork, and you clearly buy a lot of your assets, right? You mentioned that buying art assets and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like the environment art for sure, and then we started with some market assets for the characters, and then we kind of used that as inspiration, and we provided that to certain artists because we don't have an art director. So like how many polygons does something have to have, for it to not super affect frame rate and stuff like that.
Right.
That's one of the people in the Rock Band we sort of waiting to get, so to speak. So so we kind of used some existing art, gave it to some freelancers, and they created some pieces of art for us. And then now we've fully replaced all the weapons in the game or weapons we had made. And they're all kind of futuristic based. Yeah. So, but yeah, finding at first, our art was kind of like all over the place. And now it's, bit by bit, it's not done, but it's definitely kind of finding its place. It's somewhere between Apex and Fortnite, depending on the characters or the environment are. But it's definitely very bright, very colorful, and not too resource heavy. So yeah, so when you're playing multiplayer, we're shooting for really solid frame rate and smooth experience, because nothing worse than your machine not being able to handle the game, and then that costs you that buffering costs you some shots.
Yeah, no kidding. Absolutely. That's the first thing that I'd be angry about is, I wanted to pull this off and I couldn't because, well, it looks pretty, but it doesn't play. It doesn't work, For sure, definitely. So tell me, is there anything else you'd like to add? Someone you want to shout out to? Thanks on the team or anything?
Definitely shout out to Eric and Alex. They definitely between programming and community management, they're killing it. We're definitely moving fast as of late. We're working on some builds that we're sharing with some potential publishers and investors. Definitely shout out to the Unreal Marketplace. That's a really great place to whether you're getting the free asset of the month or you're just getting inspired and getting some of the kits that are on there and starting off with that. Nothing against the other engines, but that's just the one that we've been using for the longest time, and we prefer. So, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you to the rest of the team out there. Hope you guys wish you guys the best, and everyone out there, please go and wishlist the game on Steam. It's really cool. I didn't do justice in sharing it earlier on the stream. I accidentally hit full screen and didn't do what I wanted it to, but it's pretty darn cool. As you can see, you can do all of these neat little tricks, and it's a really neat little third-person shooter combined with Tony Hawk. And where can everybody follow you at?
If you go to playtrickshot.com, you can follow us on there. You can sign up for the alpha. It's got some explains a little bit about the game. We'll be posting some more videos, kind of diving deeper into the meta. But basically, we've kind of peanut butter and jelly the two. So don't be afraid if you're just into skating games or just into shooters. You can do a combination of both. It all is kind of intertwined to each other. So so that's a nice kind of part of it. We kind of want to see how we can bring in these two sides and see how they can kind of coexist.
Yeah, that'll be interesting for sure, because some people are going to be really good at the shooting aspect, and some people are going to be better at some of the tricks, and then you have to learn both, and that's going to be really cool. I'm excited to play it myself, so I look forward to it. Thank you so much for joining me today. Everyone out there, thank you for joining us, if you could, and if you watched this video and you liked it and you want to see more, subscribe, share the video. That's number one. Sharing is caring, everyone. Don't forget that. And feel free to wishlist the game on Steam so that you can keep up to date with it, for sure. All right. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks.